Welcome to Back on the Broomstick,
a modern witch's spoken word grimoire,
where two witchy friends from way back are reconnecting to their pagan roots after a long period of mundanity.
We're rewalking the path of the wise and trying out all the latest spells, rituals, and magical theory in today's witchcraft and pagan practices.
So grab your wand and your incense,
your cauldron and your crystals,
and join us
as we get
Back on the Broomstick.
Hi, and welcome to Back on the Broomstick. In this episode, we'll be talking about Norse paganism, heathenry, the Norse gods, and how you can worship like the ancient Norse.
I'm excited about this. Who are you? Tell us who you are.
I'm Layla.
And I'm Chelle, who's overly excited tonight to talk about Norse paganism.
You don't sound overly excited, Chelle. You sound kind of the opposite of that.
No, actually I am, because this isn't necessarily something I would by any means say I'm an expert at or have tons of knowledge about. And I think that sometimes when we do these types of things, if it isn't something I totally know about, I learn more after the episode, just like everyone else.
I only know a little bit about Norse paganism myself, mostly related to runes and Thor, the world tree, those types of things. But in the last year or so, I've actually learned quite a bit more. That's mostly due to the love of my life, who has been more drawn into Norse paganism in the last year or so. Supposedly, his family is related to the god Forseti, who is a Norse god.
Ooh.
Yeah, right? It's kind of fun because we have a copy. You know how you can go into your Ancestry, you can go into Ancestry DNA and see all your DNA and see all the documents, right?
Right.
Well, someone on his side of the family at one point has written out their entire family line because they're Scottish lords. It's well documented.
Ooh.
So there's documents of his family names going back to like the 1200s from when his family was deeded land. Then this handwritten list goes back even further and lists the founding person of the family as the god Forseti. So in Norse mythology, Forseti is the son of Balder, who is the son of Odin. So Thor is technically Forseti's uncle, and Odin is his grandfather. You know, back in the day, a lot of royalty wanted to claim lineage from important people. And so this particular family claimed lineage from Forseti. And his last name, Forsyth, is very, very similar. So, I mean, obviously not true, but a lot of fun anyway.
I love Ancestry.com. That's how I found out I was related to the Queen.
There you go. See, everyone's related to someone fun. I highly recommend dig into your ancestry, find someone cool, and study about it. That's kind of what my husband did. So that's how he got a little bit into Norse paganism. Now, you met him because he begged you and your husband to take him to a Beltane celebration back in the day, which is how I met him. But
I'm still shaking my head at that. Still shaking my head.
Oh, well, yeah, you're shaking your head now, sure. But it was your fault and your ex-husband's that I even met him. And if anybody wants to check that out, I think it's in one of our past Beltane episodes. But he has always been a very pagan soul. As much as I define myself as kind of Celtic, eclectic, heathen, he never even went that far. He never even said he was an eclectic pagan until he found Norse paganism. And so there's a lot to be said for finding something that fits, whether it's in your ancestry or not.
And another piece to that, Norse pagans practice rune work, and he is very into rune work too.
That's right. He has especially, again, gotten into that very much in the last year or so. He found it. We go to a pagan festival in Brushwood at Brushwood Campground, and it's called Sirius Rising. One of the people who gives workshops at Brushwood is Diana Paxson. She's an author. She's written a lot of books about runes and Asatru. She teaches classes on trance work, Norse lore, and the runes. And a lot of times she'll have these workshops available at Brushwood. So he started going to some of these workshops, not just with Diana, but with other people as well. It very much resonated. He would go every day to what's called a bloat, or a daily, basically it's a daily offering.
Now, I learned something, and I wanna kind of put this out there early on. I thought that Norse and Viking were kind of one and the same, and I found out they're not. Norse is kind of like the umbrella, and like Vikings are Norse, but not all Norse are Vikings.
Viking is a job description.
Actually, yeah, I found that out. started out as a job description.
Yeah, Viking is pretty much a job description. They would go a Viking. It was something that they did, not who the people were.
Right.
And the Norse heathenry existed before Vikings happened and after Vikings happened. So it's both older and, more continuous than the whole Viking thing. A lot of people nowadays are into Norse heathenry, Norse paganism, because of Vikings, because of the popularity of some of the TV shows, and sadly, because of the rise of white nationalism. So we're only going to touch on that a little bit because there is a strong current, especially in United States of America. White nationalists have kind of co-opted the idea of a Satru Norse paganism as being some sort of unbroken white pagan religion.
Where do people come up with this shit?
I'm not exactly sure. However, if you do decide to study Norse paganism, just do your research on any groups that you get involved with, because there may or may not be a strong streak of white nationalism there. So buyer beware.
Probably the most exposure I have had has probably been through the gods. So just to kind of rattle off a few, some of the Norse gods include Odin, Frigg, Thor, Loki, ones we've heard, Balder, Hod. Any other ones you want to mention?
Well, they're actually broken up into three different groups. There's the Aesir and the Vanir, which are the two main ones. And the gods of the Aesir, they're the ones of wisdom, war, the hunt, that type of thing. And that's like Odin, who's the All-Father, Thor, who's the god of thunder, Freyr, who's the god of farming and I think weather, Tyr, who's the god of law and of war, Heimdall, who's the watchman and the guardian of the Bifrost Bridge, which a lot of people know from the Marvel series, right? There's Bragi, who's the god of music and poetry, Balder, who's the god of joy and light, and Forseti, who's the god of justice and reconciliation. There are, of course, more, but we're not going to go over all of them because no one would recognize their names anyway, and we'll be here all day. Then there's the Vanir, and those are the gods that are associated with wisdom, the ability to see the future. They're very witchy.
Ooh.
Those are the gods like Freyja, who's the big one that you'll see. She's the goddess of not only love and sex, but also of witches. She's the goddess of magic, of the seidr. Then there's the Jotunir, the Jotunheim, and that's Loki, Frigg, Hel, Skadi, those gods. But there are a lot of gods. Once you start taking a look at Norse paganism, you'll find out that they practice something that's called animism, which is basically that everything has a spirit, has a soul, is sacred and holy. And so there are gods of place, there are spirits of place. Some of them are called land wights or land spirits, are very, very big in Norse paganism. So there's a lot of little gods in different places as well.
I had no idea you knew this much about Norse paganism.
Well, like I said, it's something that has always very much interested me, but particularly when my husband got into it and started researching runes. Then when we met with Wayne Brecky, his excitement about the runes is catching.
Love him. Love him.
He is great. Love his book. I got a set of runes from him, actually. He makes runes as well. And so I've been doing rune pulls every day, and it's interesting. It's definitely very interesting. I love the shamanistic, animistic aspect of Norse paganism. And plus, have you seen some of the things these seidrs wear? The shamans, basically the witches, the holy people of Norse paganism were very, very earthy, shamanistic. Think antlered crowns and cool leather. And the makeup, I mean, I'm not saying I'm into it just for the outfits, but the outfits are pretty kick-ass. I'm just saying.
Right.
Who's your favorite Norse god? Do you have any favorites?
Strike me down. I feel so Celtic right now in this conversation. Like I said, I never really delved into this much. I think that is an important thing for people to take note of. You don't need to know everything there is to know about every pantheon or every different lore. You don't, go to what calls to you. This has called to you at one point or another. It necessarily has not with me. It doesn't make either one of us right or wrong. It's just not something I really have a great knowledge of.
It's something that I never did until recently. There were stories I was interested in. I love Odin, the All Father, the All Seeing. I love runes and Yggdrasil, the world tree, and the idea of hanging upside down to get all of this knowledge that Odin did. I love those stories. I wasn't really attracted to it until recently.
The one thing I have known way too much than I wanted to about is Loki. I had learned about Loki as a god, whatever, 20, 30 years ago. And I had a cat. This was a very special cat. You know, my ex-husband and I had taken an stray, and within weeks, the stray gave birth in my closet. And we had this cat, and we couldn't tell if it was a boy or a girl. I don't know if you remember this.
Mhm.
We kind of joked around. We are like, oh, we should call it Loki because, it's a trickster. And we ended up, when the cat was like, whatever, 6, 8 weeks old, took it to the vet. The vet had a hard time discerning the sex of the cat. To this day, I can't tell you if it was a male or female. We'll leave it at that.
And that's one of the characteristics of Loki, the god, is they are described
Trickster.
as both male and female. They're not just a male. They are shapeshifter and a trickster.
But this damn cat, one minute it was like a female in heat, and the next minute it was like a freaking lion that is ready to roar. Like it didn't even act like a boy or a girl. Like it was a Loki. That cat was a damn Loki. And so I always had that, trickster, androgynous, always kind of fucking with people kind of mindset about Loki. And then, of course, the movie, we all know, kind of gave you that same vibe. You know what I mean?
Right.
That movie made Loki seem a little more evil. I never looked at Loki as evil, but more as a trickster. And sometimes tricks suck.
Yeah.
Sometimes tricks are fun, but sometimes tricks suck. And then, Odin, we all have pretty much heard of Odin. Not that I know a lot about Odin, but I think of Odin sometimes as like the fool on the tarot deck, that eye patch kind of hanging upside down, deep in thought. That could be a me thing. But when I look at the fool card in any of the Rider-Waite based tarot decks, I think of Odin.
Typically, as a tarot card, you see Odin depicted as the hanged man. He's got the eye patch, he's hung upside down on the world tree, and he's gaining knowledge. But, now that you've mentioned him as the fool, I mean, that's kind of fitting. It does sound kind of apt. And Odin is sometimes called the wanderer. I'm intrigued.
Right.
He is the god of wisdom, and the fool is someone who is trying to
Seeking knowledge.
And so Odin is definitely someone who is considered the all-seeing. He was a seeker of knowledge and he gained it all. That's part of his stories. He sacrificed his eye and he hung himself upside down, much like the hanged man in the tarot. And sometimes you will see the hanged man tarot card look like Odin.
Yeah, that is exactly when I think of Odin, I'm thinking of that tarot card.
He was also, like Loki was a shapeshifter, Odin was also a shapeshifter, but he hung himself from Yggdrasil, which is the world tree, which is considered to be the center of the world. Norse mythology says that there are 9 realms. One of them is Midgard, which is where Earth is, and Yggdrasil goes through all of the different levels. So Odin hung himself upside down from Yggdrasil for 9 days and 9 nights so that he could gain all of the knowledge of the world. And that's when the knowledge of the runes was given to him. So that's part of that story. But he is the all-seeing. Even though he has one eye, he is the all-seeing, all-father, and he knows everything. He's the god of war and of wisdom, of wandering, and of, everything, life and death. And he sits at the hall of Valhalla, where warriors go after they die in battle. Briefly, I know a lot of people have also heard of Valhalla, which is, the Norse version of the afterlife. It's not heaven or hell. It does not correspond in that way. But there are different places. There isn't just Valhalla. Valhalla is the afterlife that Odin sits at. Each god sits at their own version of the afterlife. Some are better than others, but his is for those who have died in battle.
Now, I need to tell you something about Thor.
What's that?
That is very important.
He's a big ass bro. Give him a beer.
Oh my God. The most important thing you need to know about Thor.
He's hot in the movies.
Chris Hemsworth. Fucking, oh my God. Oh my God.
He's totally Thor.
Right.
Seriously.
Right. But yeah, all that aside, you got the thing about Thor that always struck me is that whole, I look at him as like a thunder and lightning god.
He is.
Like that kind of weather god, I guess would maybe be a better way of how I see it. But kind of that, don't make him bring out the hammer, yo.
Yeah, he really doesn't want to either. I mean,
He'll use it like a fuck around and find out.
now a lot of Norse mythology is reconstructed. Let's put it that way. They do have the poetic Eddas, which are basically stories that were written down, but these were written down after Christianity had already taken hold in most of the places that practice this type of religion.
I call that like fifth hand information.
Exactly. So there isn't really good direct information. There's these poetic Eddas, there's other stories, there's folklore that has been passed down.
But no first hand information.
That's right. So people are reconstructing a lot of this. So you're going to find variations of things here and there. I thought I was talking about Thor. How did I get from Thor to there?
I have no idea where you were headed with that.
Me either. But Thor's a bro. In a lot of the stories in the poetic Eddas, maybe that's where I was going. But in these poetic Eddas, you can find out a lot about the different gods and how they act and what they're like and what they like and don't like. And you'll find in these stories that Thor is a big time bro. So just like the later Marvel movies, I guess, where he's a little more goofy and, that's what he's like in these Eddas, in the stories. He is the god of storms, the god of thunder, but he's also pretty much a laid back bro.
Now, I found like a quote, for lack of a better word, that I thought was a good distinction to kind of circle back to the whole Norse/Viking thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the term Norse refers to settlers, traders, farmers, and seafarers who originally hailed from Northern Europe, while the term Norse and Viking both refer to people from Scandinavia. Vikings are a more specific group of Norsemen who served as part-time warriors under their noble chiefs. So if they're settlers, traders, farmers, and seafarers, then the Vikings just are the seafarer grouping of that.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Just a job.
But I think that for some reason, I know I've said this to you in private, but this is something that is like taking off right now. Norse magic is like exploding. I've joked with you, everybody's a Viking now, but it's really a thing. There's this band. I don't know what they're called.
High Lung.
You know who I'm talking about?
I do. Hold on. I'm going to share my screen with you. It's High Lung, this band.
Yeah, because I see the girl and the guy holding up a chalice halfway down your page.
Yeah. These guys.
Yep.
Yep, it's High Lung. When we were talking about seidrs, and I wanted you to show the shamanic dress, this is what seidrs dress like.
Oh, I have seen that. I just didn't know what it was called.
Yeah. It is taking off right now. Everyone is a Viking, and mostly because of TV. There's a couple different TV shows that are very, very popular right now. Also, everyone's kind of trying to find their roots and find, what did my ancestors practice? Folk magic and finding, your particular pagan roots is super popular. And the good news is, as we've talked about before, is you're related to so freaking many people. If you want to do it that way, find what's good for you. If it's a closed practice and you need a teacher, you better talk to those people and those teachers. However, everything else, just go where your interest goes. Go where you feel that pull, where you feel that you want to learn. But Norse paganism is huge and it's very cool. Another reason for the popularity, I think, is because of the laid back nature of worship.
It's got to be the drinking horns.
The drinking horns help. Drinking is a form of offering. It's a form of worship. If you want to have a beer and say, this is to you, Odin, or this is to you, Thor, and drink that down, that is a great offering and you've done your ritual for the day. Norse deities, if you just talk to them, if you offer your first bite of food, or, this is a cool thing I heard the other day, is they offer the steam or the heat from their food, the aroma from their drink.
Interesting.
And then they eat the food that has given off that heat to their deity to consume that part of it, which I think is kind of cool. So to worship like a Norseman, to worship like a Norse heathen, you would follow the seasons, like the wheel of the year. Particularly the solstices, the equinoxes, it follow the seasons, and that's how they worshipped.
So really what you're telling me is it's kind of the same as a lot of other traditions, but specific to them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're all these nature worshiping animistic religions are very, very similar. They all have a lot of similar things. One of the big components to remember in Norse heathenry is the animism part, that all things are holy. You know, they have certain standards that they want to live by. If you can separate some of the bad bits, Asatru has like the nine virtues that are all really good things to live by. And so they try to live and be good people. But at the same time, you know, following the cycle of the seasons, they'll often have a house altar to their household spirits, the spirits of the land their house is on, maybe to ancestors or to deities, and give offerings there. Animism and the spirits of place are a very, very important part of Norse paganism.
Now, I have always thought something, and maybe I'm wrong, so definitely educate me. I was always under the impression that Norse had a little fluff of Christianity sprinkled in. True or false?
True, very true.
Okay. Like, to what extent?
Norse heathenry, they very much incorporated Christianity. Like a lot of places that had Christians come in, they pretty much just kind of became part of the community and they adopted a lot of Christian practices. And then gradually Christianity just kind of took over. And most of the heathen practices were relegated to folk magic or very small pockets where people incorporated Christianity with their pagan practices that maybe their grandparents taught them.
Okay, so similar to Great Britain then.
Very, very
Okay,
similar.
I just, then that's different than what I thought. I thought that from the beginning they had kind of a Christian flair about them. Okay, but it was
Nope.
more of an infiltration.
Yeah, kind of an infiltration. You know, they pretty much let it happen. There was no great big conquering or anything. The Norse people were very fluid, I guess, for lack of a better word. They brought a lot of servants and slaves from other places. They fought and intermingled with people from all over. So they got a lot of ideas and a lot of different flavors that would kind of pop up in their communities.
Well, at that time, they were probably the main group of travelers.
Right, right. And so they incorporated a lot of the things that they found. And so it just gradually over time became more and more Christian. That's why even the Eddas, the poems that have all these stories in them, are heavily Christian influenced. So
Okay.
you'll find a lot of different variations, much like most of paganism. You'll find a lot of different variations of Norse heathenry.
Take the best, leave the rest.
That's exactly right. And find a group that works for you. So there's like the Vanatru group, also sometimes called the Way of the Vanir. And they mostly focus on the Vanir pantheon. There's the Rokatru, which is like the underworld gods. I don't know much about them. The Asatru, which again, you have to be a little careful with Asatru because a lot of them have been co opted by white supremacist groups. So just be a little cautious. There's Theodism, Anglo Saxon heathenry, Germanic heathenry. There's Odinism. So you can pick and choose your flavor of Norse paganism that works the best for you. Some have more Christian influences, some have less. Some focus on one of the pantheons over another. Some are much more Wiccan based. You'll find some that are heavily Wiccan influenced because they came out of that group of people at that time. So, you know, as with most things, do your research. And I will put links to a couple different books and things in the show description so that you can get an idea, because neither Chelle nor I are experts. While this is something I have a high interest in.
Compared to me, you're a damn freaking genius at this.
You know, honestly, Chelle, that's what I love about this religion. What I love about this way of life
You
is,
kind of dabble in things, see what you like,
yeah,
see what you don't.
I am constantly learning new things and interested in new and different things. You and I know you're not the world's biggest reader. Girl, you have a big fucking library because you are constantly reading a new witchy book or pagan book. You know, we're always grabbing something new and trying something new. This religion is not static. It shouldn't be static. It is the way of the wise. And that's one of the things I absolutely love about it is all the learning.
And as much as I talk about, you know, being into the whole Celtic thing, by no means think that that's it. Remember that time I dabbled in Hawaiian magic and had this like obsession with Pele?
Yes, I do.
You know,
Yeah.
so it's not that I don't like to stray away from Celtic stuff, but it takes something really deep to grab me. And Like I never even really got into runes, even as a divination tool. I mean, how many times have you tried to strong arm me and trying different divination tools? And where
Right.
do I end up? Tarot.
The other thing too is a lot of the magic of this type of this Norse heathenism is very shamanistic. The seidrs or satyrs, that type of magic is meditative. It's deeply dream magic. It's very trance. It's very trance magic, meditation, trance. And that's not always your jam. You don't love those meditative things.
Gemini in me.
And so, this type of magic where you get into a trance state and you communicate with the spirits of the land, with the spirits of your ancestors to divine the future, to divine what you should do. And it's deeply personal and it's very heavily connected in trance state to the land and to the spirits around you. And that's not exactly your type of magic.
Not my cup of tea.
Exactly. And that's, some people it will work for better than others. And I think
Right.
because I like that type of shamanism, that type of
It
animism,
works good for you.
it works better for me. Yeah. I've always been very much the meditative self-hypnosis witch, so it's a little different.
And I think from my perspective, the important thing is learn a little bit about everything so that you can decide, I'm really into this and want to know more, or, that's not my thing. And this is something that I learned enough about to know that it really wasn't my thing, but you got to take the time to see if it's your thing or not. And that's the important piece.
Yeah, exactly. You got to, like you said, you have to keep looking and researching things until you find what clicks for you.
See, now, like I said at the very beginning, I was excited for this because I knew I'd learned something, and I did.
Well, all right. Awesome. I'm glad I could help you out there, Shell. Now, if I can just get you to meditate every day, dang it.
Baby steps, man. Baby
Steps.
steps.
That's right. That's right. All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. Hopefully, you'll check us out on our new YouTube channel at Back on the Broomstick, on our Instagram, our Facebook page, our website, all of them, Back on the Broomstick. And if you have any questions, please email us at backonthebroomstick@gmail.com.
We got a little favor for you, folks. If you could if you could subscribe, if you could do all of those things on all of the platforms, we'd be forever grateful. And you know what? If you want to just say hi, shoot us a message. We'd love to hear from you.
And for all of you who are continuing to donate on our sponsorship page, thank you, thank you, thank
We
you.
love you.
We really, really appreciate it. That helps us give us the time to answer these emails, the DMs, and to give you a great show every week. So again, thank you all, and may the universe conspire in your favor.
Keep it witchy.